We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
I'm Will.
I'm Brian. We're your hosts for the Travel Agents podcast. Today, this is pretty exciting because we are going to review Northern Ireland. Ireland, as you may or may not know, is actually kind of split up into two countries. There's a lot of politics there. It gets really weird and berserk, but we're going to try to break it down for you. We're here with Will and his wife, Kristen, our first female guest, which is really exciting because they went to Northern Ireland and they had a great time. And they're going to tell you all about it. We're going to talk about things like the Titanic Museum, Giants Causeway, where to get the best black pudding, as well as the rain, which seems to be evident. They always say that it wouldn't be a true day in Ireland if it didn't rain. I don't know what that is. I guess they say it's part of the charm or something.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's
that's just, it seems to be, that's to get tourists to come. But we're going to fly into Belfast International Airport. We're going to talk about where to stay, renting cars, and also, why on earth would you go to Northern Ireland instead of places like Dublin and the Cliffs of Moher and Killarney and the Waterford Glass Factory, right? Because Northern Ireland is actually a part of the United Kingdom, makes up one of the 4 countries of the UK, and they use a different currency, but they still drive on the left side of the road. They use the same currency as the UK, I should say. But a different currency than the rest of Ireland. So we're going to talk about all that, and I'm eager to kick it off with our defining words, which is a segment we use to start bird's eye view of the country we visited. So Will and Kristen, I leave it off with you for the defining words.
Here's 3 words to help you. Here's our defining words.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so Northern Ireland, there's a lot of things going on with Northern Ireland, but the first thing that I wanted to talk about was actually the history of this country. Like Brian mentioned, this country is actually a part of the United Kingdom. It's not a part of the Republic of Ireland. It's a separated country from the Republic of Ireland. And being a part of the United Kingdom, they had a lot of problems, and in some instances, they still do have a little problem with England. It's not as prevalent as it was, but there was this defining era called the Troubles. And this is our first defining word, the Troubles. And this was an era that took place from the 1960s to the late 1990s. And there's a lot of things going on in this period, but to sum it down, it really boils down to the nationalist side of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and the Unionists who were loyal to England and the Crown, really having problems with Northern Ireland being a part of the United Kingdom and not being a part of Ireland proper. And during this time period, there's a lot of violence, a lot of bombings, kidnappings, and just a lot of problems going on in the country as a whole. And it's separated into, or boiled down into Europe, mainland Europe, went into England, went into the Republic of Ireland. It bled through all these countries, but it was really focused in Northern Ireland. And we actually spent most of our time in the town of Londonderry, which is more commonly known as Derry by the locals.
Yeah.
And
you'll get corrected.
Yeah,
I got that taxi driver was not. I said Londonderry thinking I was being really proper, and I'll never do that again.
Yeah, shot down real quick. Yeah, there's a really interesting area in Derry called the Bogside, and there's all these really cool murals, and we're going to talk about those murals. But to kind of make it a little bit more real with the Troubles, there was a massacre that occurred in 1972 where 13 people were killed by British forces. And when you go to Derry, when you go to Northern Ireland, you see all these relics of this era, and it's really interesting. It's really pronounced, and it's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's monuments and statues and memorials set up all over, and it makes you really feel it.
Yeah.
So you get really, emotionally involved, even if you're not super familiar, which we were not
No.
beforehand. Even going into it, it was news to me that Northern Ireland and Ireland were different countries.
Yeah.
So wait, it's one country. No, Kristen, it's two countries. So you get really, really invested really quickly because you can tell it's so, it still means a lot to the people and the locals that are there.
So all this bloodshed and craziness that happened like 30 or 40 plus years ago, should we be worried about being safe to go to Northern Ireland?
That's a really good question. As of right now in 2021, there's really no problems with the IRA. They've been defunct, disbanded. They no longer, as a whole, there's no problems going on between England and Northern Ireland. There's no bombings, there's no kidnappings, there's nothing like that. As a tourist, you are safe in Northern Ireland.
I know that when I went to the Republic of Ireland, our tour guide said, hey, when you go out late to a bar and you're drinking Guinness with the locals, they're game to talk about anything, some of the nicest people in the world, but just don't bring up Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
It was one of those things like, it'll probably be fine, but why risk it?
Yeah.
You don't
Sure.
know who you're talking to. So I'm guessing since we're talking about Northern Ireland today, they'd probably say the same thing. Hey, if you go out late to a pub sometime, there's a million things to talk about. Don't bring up this.
Yeah. No, I was thinking that it was more, I was thinking it felt fresh, really.
Yeah.
Because of how, it wasn't super long ago.
No.
But we talked to a woman in a store and she said that people call them bomb threats.
Yeah.
And she rolls her eyes whenever it happens because
That's just like
it's
another
just
day.
another day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's kind of like if you go to New York and you talk to a New Yorker and they're reminiscing about 9/11, even though 9/11 happened 20 years ago, it's still so fresh in these people's minds. It's the same thing with the situation in Northern Ireland. But it's not all. It's not even like a bad thing right now. When you go to Northern Ireland, it makes it unique. It gives it more of a cultural perspective for the country as a whole. It's a really fascinating. I don't really see anything like that in any other countries, maybe like Israel, Palestine, but it makes it unique to Northern Ireland, and I really appreciate that.
Speaking on it as people who've just visited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's so many other words to define with Ireland. Kristen, did you have one?
Green. Yeah.
Yeah.
Green would definitely be, I would say that would be the very first word that anyone, when you step out of the airport.
Yeah, you step out of the airport, you get in the car, and you get just hit with green hills, rolling hills, so many sheep and all this stuff, but the country's just green.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's so gorgeous. Yeah, gorgeous country. There is one more word that I think defines Northern Ireland, and that's crack, C-R-A-I-C, and it's actually, I guess, slang. They use this word to say like, what's up, what's going on, what's happening.
I feel like if you try and say it, it's going to sound like when a 60-year-old tries to say cool. Like we say, excuse me, what is the crack? What's the crack? But if you talk to, you usually hear it from people who are cool in Ireland and Northern Ireland. They'll say, what's the crack? What's the crack? Like, what's going on tonight?
Yeah,
Or,
they say it in their cool Irish accent.
Yeah, they sound really cool. And whenever we tried to replicate it, it sounds, I think we ruin it,
Yeah.
What is the crack? What's the crack, please?
Yeah, but if you hear someone ask you, hey, what's the crack? They're asking, hey, what's going on? What's happening? What are you doing?
Yeah. You don't have to worry about, they don't think that you're selling drugs or wanting to buy drugs. It's not referring to the crack that we know and love as Americans. Just kidding. This is a family friendly.
Yeah, no doubt. But I think that wraps up the defining words segment. Let's just roll into highs and lows.
Sometimes things are good, sometimes they're bad too. It's highs, lows coming to you.
So like most locations, there are so many highs to the trip. But for me personally, my high point with Northern Ireland was our trip to Rathlin Island.
Oh, yeah.
So cool. Rathlin Island is actually just a little island off the northern coast of Northern Ireland.
That's where we saw the puffins, right?
Yeah. So cool.
What month did you go?
May.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most popular months to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know that.
April and May are the two most popular months to go to Northern Ireland. But Rathlin Island, you can actually see Northern Ireland from the island, and you can also see Scotland from the island. And again, if you're a history buff and you are a fan of the movie Braveheart and you know who Robert the Bruce is, he stayed in Rathlin Island. He sought shelter there from the monarchy. But what's so cool about Rathlin Island is it's a home to like 150 people, small villages there, but it's about 7 or 8 miles wide. You land from the ferry and you can either take a bus or you can hike to the other end of the island and see a massive puffin colony, probably tens of thousands of puffins, I would say.
I don't know how to quantify puffins, really. You could have said any number.
Yeah, can't even...
dozens and dozens, dozens and dozens.
And a puffin is a bird which has a colored bill.
Bill, beak, something like that. Yeah.
No, because there's that joke where the duck says, "Put it on my bill."
Ah, okay.
Okay, but it's got a beak that's orange and
Say
gray
nose.
and
Yep, their nose.
Yeah, they're like kind of tiny. They're like
rounded head.
Yeah. They're not very big, but they're
mean.
So cute.
yeah, they are mean.
They are so
They
cute.
don't look
so
like they
mean.
would be mean though.
I know. People say the same thing about me. So cute, so mean. You can be so mean because they're so cute.
You say Braveheart was filmed up here in Northern Ireland?
No,
Parts
so
of it?
like
Or
there's
the
a
story?
historical figure
Oh, my
named Robert the Bruce,
okay.
and he was a part of the Scottish rebellion to the monarchy, and he actually sought asylum, or he kind of holed up at in Rathlin Island.
Got it. My bad.
So kind of like
Okay.
a cool little tidbit of history there going on with the island. But for me, what's so cool about it is that we hiked it. We didn't take the bus to the puffins, and it made for like a really cool like day trip. It took us maybe like 3 hours to get to one end, and then we saw the puffins, and the puffins are so cool. I mean, they're in this huge colony. They take up this entire cliff area. You have like telescopes there. You don't have to pay extra. You can just glance out these telescopes, see the puffins. You can see them from afar. It's so cool.
And it's
But-
worth it just even if you just do the walk.
Yeah, just
you
the
know,
walk
even
alone
If there were no puffins at
is
the end of it. It's beautiful.
So cool. Yeah, it's it's a really great little hike. It's all paved, so it's not super strenuous. There's moments where there's like a high incline, but all in all, I wouldn't say it was a strenuous hike at all.
And you took the ferry from, I'm guessing, Bali Castle?
Yeah, so to get there, if you're in Derry or if you're in Belfast, you're gonna take a train to Ballycastle, and then from Ballycastle you'll take a ferry, and the ferry is about $15, and it takes around 45 minutes to get to Rathlin Island. There is like a private boat that you can take for more money, and it takes like 15 minutes to get to Rathlin Island, but I mean, it's not worth the price.
Yeah, well, I want to hop in here for a second. Something I notice about Ireland and the UK, specifically Scotland and Ireland, is ferries are such a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to get used to it. There's ferries that are going to take you everywhere, but really do your research and know what days of the week do they leave and what are the timetables they leave.
Absolutely.
I prefer a website
Yeah.
called directferries.com because it just shows you all the ferry schedules as opposed to just the ferries for a certain region or something like that. So just a
Yeah.
little tip, directferries.com.
We'll put that in the travel guide.
That's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for me, one of the highs, Rathlin Islands. Kristen, do you have a different high?
Yeah. Giants Causeway.
Oh, okay. What'd you
I
like
know,
about
I'm
Giants
sure
Causeway?
That's like the number one of a lot of people that go. If you look
Yeah.
up Northern Ireland, I'm sure that's one of the first things to pop up. But I mean, it looks beautiful. It's very, it's like these octagonal, octagonal stone structures that have been formed from the way that the water hits the side of the cliffs.
Yeah. So a little background. Giants Causeway is a bunch of basalt columns. They're made out of basalt rock, and basalt rock is formed when water hits lava, volcanic activity. So what's really cool is that they form these rocks, and then the water shapes them even more, and they become octagonal. And that's what Giants Causeway is. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Super pretty. There's not many places in the world that are like it at all.
I'm so glad that you actually did the research and looked up the science of it, because that was the extent of my knowledge on the topic.
Hey, no, that's okay.
I could tell basalt was on the tip of your tongue, though.
Basalt,
yeah.
the pepper next.
But pepper. It helps that we just did the Iceland podcast. That's for sure.
Pepper.
My question I have for Giants Causeway.
Sure.
So much beauty.
Yeah.
So worth it.
So worth it.
How many hours do you need there? Realistically.
I mean, you can stop by Giants Causeway, see it in 30 minutes, but I feel like you would be doing yourself a disservice.
Okay.
There's a really cool, I wouldn't even say a trail. There are wooden steps behind Giants Causeway that you can take up to the top of the cliffs. And you can see Giants Causeway from up high, and you can see the ocean from the cliffs and stuff. But it just gives it a whole different perspective that I think you would be really missing out if you didn't take the time to hike the cliffs, get to the top of the cliff, and then work your way back down to the visitor center, or get back to your bus, get back to your car, however you arrive to Giants Causeway.
Right.
I would say, as someone who's not a travel agent, just whatever, just base it off however much time you have there.
Yeah.
The more time that you spend there, the better.
Yeah.
Because it's just so gorgeous that you could just sit there and just enjoy the view. But as
Absolutely,
far as
yeah.
you could do like a 30-minute, a few, because you just take pictures and you see the actual. I mean, it's cool if you can even go for 10, 15 minutes. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth noting that if you want to see the visitors center, I believe it's like $12. You can go in and they have like more history of how Giants Causeway was formed, a little history on the geology of the rocks and all that good stuff. And that price also includes the price for parking in the parking lot. But if you are taking a bus or if you're taking a car there, you do not need to pay for parking. There's a parking lot nearby. No matter what, you are going to need to hike itself to Giants Causeway. It's like maybe 10 minutes.
And Giants Causeway is about 1 hour and 15 minutes drive from Belfast. And so sounds like it'd be a great day trip.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Belfast.
And we're going to talk about how we saw Giants Causeway. We had a whole day on the Antrim coast is what it's called. And we'll talk about that more in detail.
Nice.
But I do want to get into some of the low points of our trip.
Please.
And for me, something that the U.S. doesn't have are these bank holidays that the United Kingdom has. And they have maybe like 8 a year, I want to say. But what happens with these bank holidays is a lot of stores shut down. A lot of places in general just shut down. And they reduce the amount of trains that are active. They're not going as frequent. And
Right.
Same thing with buses. So for us, we had this day in the Antrim coast, and then we got back to the city of Coleraine, which we needed to get onto our train to get back to Derry. But
Right.
the trains weren't going as frequently. So we had to wait like an extra 2.5 hours or something like that. And we couldn't do anything in the city of Coleraine because everything was closed. And then when we got back to Derry, everything was still closed. Like we had trouble like finding something to eat. We had to, we settled, we were able to get pizza and stuff, but
Yeah.
I guess what I really want to hammer home is that if you go during a bank holiday, just be prepared that things are going to be closed.
Exactly. When clients sit down with me to talk about trip planning, the first thing we inevitably talk about is the dates, because we have to get the dates right. What I like to do when we're talking about the dates and the client has their calendar pulled up, I go to officeholidays.com. I'll say it again, officeholidays.com. And it gives you things like bank holidays or religious holidays, just things you really wouldn't realize from all around the world. And you can type in specifically the country they're going to. And like one just quick little pro tip I've learned, since May is a big travel month, that May 1st is International Labor Day. It's like the U.S.'s version of Labor Day, except in the U.S., I think it changes. Labor Day changes every year, what date it is.
Right.
In Europe, it's always May 1st. And so I've learned like sometimes you can't avoid it based on when your clients can travel. Sure. And so I just always try to make May 1st like a travel day in country. Like, okay, you're going to be traveling from Milan to Rome. Let's have that on May 1st. That way, like, you're not seeing sights and things. You're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's really cool. Kristen, you had a low point for the trip, didn't you?
I did. And this is part of it was my own fault, but overall, I mean, weather, rain would probably be a better way of saying. So
what kind of weather did you experience? Like,
it was super wet.
super wet, and it's really cold there too.
Right. Well, but honestly, if I had to say prep for one kind of adverse weather, it'd be prep for rain. Prep for wet, because it doesn't matter how warm it would even be. Like once you're wet, you were chilled to the bone. So cold. And I mean, I think I experienced this more because, I went before you went.
Yeah, you've gone twice.
Yeah, and so we kind of lucked out when we had weather, but we had good, nice, sunny weather. But there's a reason that one of the top words is green, and it's because of all the rain.
Yeah.
So the downside of that is that you have to prepare for that.
Yeah, if you're going like on a day trip to like Giants Causeway, pack a bag of clothes to change into,
and I mean,
bring your raincoat.
And what's the ponchos? They're not cute. They don't look great in Instagram pictures, but your Instagram pictures are gonna look just so whack when you're looking like a wet dog. So it's worth the poncho. Just get a cute poncho.
Yeah, like shop in advance for a cute poncho you like, as opposed to get hit with a tourist trap poncho purchase on site that's grossly overcost.
You said it,
overpriced.
Cute poncho, #1 travel tip.
That's a pro tip right there.
Pro tip.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cute ponchos. So I would say that's probably my low.
That's a good low. That's a
lesson learned.
Yeah.
So part of it was my bad.
Hey,
I wish someone had told me to get a cute poncho.
I mean, you prepared us for the second time you went, and the whole family went, and I still felt unprepared. Like we had that one day in Derry, and it was raining, and we just got off the plane. We went to a Gaelic football match. We're going to talk about that later. And it was raining the entire time, and it was so miserable. Like we were just so cold. I had Under Armour on. I had a raincoat on. I thought I was really prepared.
Yeah.
And I was not. So,
but what about the wind? In our Iceland episode, we talked about the wind, which none of us were prepared for.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't remember there being any harsh winds like there was in Iceland. It was just just a downpour, and the temperature was probably like 38 to like 45 during the time. So it's just cold, nearly freezing. Yeah, Fahrenheit. Yeah, good point.
Just for the international listener.
Yeah.
It wasn't boiling lava.
Not to be confused with Kelvin.
But I think that's all we have for highs and lows, and we can now get into our tips.
Tips from the travel agents.
So we already talked about being aware of like bank holidays, any potential other holidays that might prevent you from being able to really experience Northern Ireland. But there are a lot of activities to do in the country, and we talked about how we stayed in Derry, the town of Londonderry.
Oh, wow. You just went out and said it.
I just went out and said it. Hey, the people got to know. If you're looking for it on a map, it's going to be called Londonderry, but it's really known as Derry. And there's a lot of really cool things in Derry. A lot of rich history that kind of go back to the Troubles. But one of the coolest experiences that we had in the city was seeing a Gaelic football match, because I had never even heard of this sport before, and I thought it was just going to be soccer. Like someone told me, hey, we're going to go to a football match. I was like, oh, cool, we're going to go see soccer. But it wasn't. It was Gaelic football. And what's so different about this is it's kind of a hodgepodge of soccer, football, and rugby, North American football, rugby, and soccer. And it was just really, really unique because it's unique to Ireland. And Derry has its own like Gaelic football league. And the town of Derry had a stadium of something like 12,000 seats. So there's this stadium. It was fully crowded. Everyone's so excited about this Gaelic football match. So like day one, we get to Derry and we're like engrossed in this Derry culture of seeing this Gaelic football match. And I thought that was just a really cool experience. Something totally unique to anything that we did along the trip.
So was it like rugby?
Yeah, it was. It was a contact sport. People were hitting hard, and you needed to score, if I remember correctly, with your feet. So that's kind of where like the separation kind of ends. That's kind of where the soccer aspect comes into play. They have positions just like you do in soccer. They have center backs, midfielders, forwards, stuff like that.
I have always wanted to see a live game of any sport in Europe or the UK.
It was really cool. I mean, even when the weather was, it was miserable. It was rainy and everything, but people were so happy, so ecstatic, and so excited to watch this.
Probably pretty passionate about their team as well.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. That's what I thought was fun about it, as someone who doesn't particularly get into the actual sports watching. I was spectator watching. it was really fun to see. You felt like a local. You got really excited, just because the people around you were so like animated, so excited, and you had the old guys. I like the old guys with the hats. What are those hats called? When you think like of a just Irish golfer, like
yes, kind of looks like a train conductor hat.
Kind of, yeah.
I don't know what this is.
The old Irish train conductor hat. Sure.
But I don't know. Just like
there were that many train conductors at the game. Actually,
the guy,
just got off
main
shift.
guy and Babe, whatever. The movie Babe. Yeah. Anyway, that's what
it was cool. Yeah, it was really cool. And yeah, I mean, like we kind of said, Derry has so many things associated with history, and it's a really walkable city. And if you're in the city, I recommend doing that. Go around, walk the city. Go to locations like Guildhall in St. Colum's Cathedral. These are buildings that were built like hundreds of years ago, and the architecture is really cool. Some fascinating history there. If you're interested in history or architecture as a whole, cool places to see. They have like the Peace Bridge. I remember walking the Peace Bridge along the River Foyth. Really cool. Just kind of a testament to where Northern Ireland is in association with the Troubles. They're at peace right now, and this Peace Bridge is a symbol of that.
Yeah.
And that in itself is just cool to see.
Right. You're absolutely right. But also, it seems like Brian found the hat. Brian, what's the hat called?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not like the authentic Irish wool flat cap or the golf flat cap.
No, okay. No, that's sorry. I know that the Peace Bridge very important, but also
also the hat.
Yeah, also the hat. Sorry, that was just really important. And it's called the Peace Bridge. We kept calling it the Freedom. We kept mixing up the word.
The Freedom Bridge. Yeah, we kept calling it that.
Like calling it like a different, like cool, like inspiring.
Yeah, something kind of similar.
The Peace Bridge.
Yeah, what's cool is that the Peace Bridge actually bridges two different communities. The one community is a historically nationalist community, and the other community is a historically unionist, unionist community. So it's kind of a symbol to the peace that is happening between these two communities that were at one time at war, so to speak.
Besides the Titanic Museum, and when you're in a car/train or bus, are you just outside the entire time you're in Northern Ireland? Like, you really need to go when the weather's good, it just seems like.
Yeah, it is an outdoor country. To really get the most out of it, I would say it's an outdoor country.
We did spend a lot of time in Belfast and Derry. Those were the two cities that we would hang out in. And I mean, I guess cities.
There were shops and museums.
Shops and all kinds of things.
Churches to walk in.
Markets.
Yeah, and we'll talk more in detail about Belfast, but I know with Derry, there are a little bit more activities to do inside. Like, they have this area called the Craft Village, which you probably can guess by the name of it what it is. It's a shopping center with these local artists, and you can buy their arts and crafts. And that's all indoors, but it's an outdoor shopping mall. And it's really cool because, like, even just going and talking to the locals is an interesting experience on its own. So if you're looking for souvenirs or something to remember your trip by, I recommend going to the Craft Village, pick up a cool souvenir, and talk to the locals because they're really fascinating.
Yeah, but overall, I would say, if the weather's better, then you can enjoy more outside.
Yeah, and they have great cafes, great bakeries, and I mean, you get a really cool pub experience because you're in the United Kingdom. If you go to Northern Ireland, you're going to the pub, and it's so cool. You're into soccer like I am. You get to watch soccer with like locals, which is something I never get to experience here in America. And you get to drink beer, and I mean, I don't know. It's really fun.
Was Guinness big up there, or is it just big in?
For sure.
Okay,
it's really big there. Yeah, it's like Guinness and Carlsberg. Were the two beers that were really popular in Ireland.
And if you're like me, I'm not a huge beer drinker, but want to get the experience, you get it with, and this I guess applies to Ireland too, but black currant.
Yeah, black currant.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah. Black currant. This is what they add to the beer?
Yes, they add it, and it's marketed towards females. But
it's really sweet.
I fit that bill.
It tasted good. Yeah.
So,
didn't taste like beer as much.
Perfect. That's what I look for in a beer.
There are two. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Did we skip over food? Are we going to come back to it?
We're going to circle back
Good,
to it.
let's
Yeah,
circle
we're
back.
going to circle
All
back
right,
to
go on.
it.
Keep going, Will. You're doing great.
There's two things that really make Derry unique. The one is this area called the Walls of Derry. Londonderry is actually a walled city. So there's Inner Derry and Outer Derry, and Inner Derry is protected by these walls. These walls were built in the 1600s, and they were never breached, apparently. And it's a really cool, again, history. If walking the walls of Derry, seeing all these old cannons that were used to protect the wall, and overlooking the walls, you see this area called the Bogside. And the Bogside is outside of the inner city of Derry. But what happened with the Bogside, I mentioned this earlier before, was there was this massacre where British soldiers killed 13 people. And this area is a traditional nationalist community. So a lot of IRA sympathy is coming from this community, or at least historically there was. And there's all these really beautiful murals in this area called the Bogside. And that if you're interested in street art or art in general, I highly recommend just taking a walk into the Bogside. You might even meet the artists like we did. They were really kind.
Yeah, he was super cool. He signed, he had all these books with his own books with him, and he signed them, and we feel super hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of cool murals dedicated to some of the history that happened along the way of the Troubles and stuff. And if you want, you can pay for a guided tour along the Bogside, and they'll go into detail about what happened and
Would recommend
all that stuff. Yeah, I recommend going to the Bogside
because
for
it can
sure.
get confusing, but it clears it up when you have someone who's local who explains everything. To
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Better than we are.
Yeah, absolutely. But I recommend checking it out. Super cool. Derry is a very, very cool city. I really, really like Derry.
So did you feel you needed a guide for Northern Ireland?
Ooh,
Or could you argue that, because based on what I hear you saying, it sounds like it could be advantageous to have a local who knows about Ireland. So maybe doing like a little city walking tour, even if it was a group tour, just to kind of get your bearings of the history that you're experiencing.
Sure.
But you don't need you don't need a private guide for the entire
Not
duration.
for the whole trip. No. I would say you would probably need a guide for the Antrim coast. That's where Giants Causeway is. And we had a day in the Antrim coast because, like, if you do a guide with the Antrim coast, they will more than likely either provide you with a bus, a shuttle service of some sort, or even a private car. And what's cool about that is that you don't have to worry about jumping from 2-3 different kinds of transport, whether it be train, private car, taxi, bus, you name it. But if you go with a tour guide, that's all taken care of, and you still get to go to the high popular sites like Bushmills Distillery, Dunluce Castle, Carrick-a-Reid Bridge, and Giants Causeway. Those are like the big main 4 items that are along the coast that are really, really popular. So
When you say Antrim Coast,
yeah.
I was on this trip and I don't know what you're talking about. What? Are
So-
they just those things?
So Antrim is actually the county that all of these things are located in,
Okay.
and they call it the Antrim Coast because all of these locations are along the coast within the county of Antrim.
Is that like north, south, east?
Yeah, it's north, the most northern part of Northern Ireland.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I would say you need a guide. I mean, you don't need a guide, but it's recommended that you use a guide for this day. Just because there is so much traveling going on. You're going to so many different locations, and there's a lot of history at all these
Connects the
locations.
dots.
It does. It connects the dots. It makes it a little bit easier for you to get to each location, because for us, we didn't have a guide. We took the train from Derry to a town called Coleraine, and from there we got on a bus, and that took us to, I think our first stop was Dunluce Castle. And then Dunluce Castle is really cool. It's this old, like, destroyed castle. Game of Thrones was filmed there. There's some shooting locations there, and you get to see this old castle. That's really cool. Then the next trip is like Giants Causeway, so you don't have to worry about transportation with that. And then from there, you can go to a area called Carrick-a-Reid Rope Bridge, which was really cool.
Must do.
Yeah, absolutely a must do. That's probably, out of all of these things, even more so than Giants Causeway, Carrick-a-Reid Bridge is probably like the one
Ooh.
tourist trap. of the location.
I might have to fight you on that one.
Really? Because I mean, if you have to wait to get onto the bridge to go through the rope bridge.
Yep.
And so there's kind of there you might have a wait is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So what the Carricker Reed rope bridge is, it is worth it. Historically, it's just this location where fishermen would build these bridges to get to the other side of this rock to do salmon fishing. But now it's become this really cool tourist spot. And there's this well-designed bridge that you get to cross on. It's like 150 feet up in the air, and you get to see like the ocean below you.
See the guide for a really cute picture of us on the bridge.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's a cool picture of us on the bridge in the guide. And I thought what's cool about this is that you're in this little area that's kind of open. Like there's no trees or anything like that. You just get this really cool view of the ocean and all the greenery of Northern Ireland. And I don't know, it was cool. It was a cool little hike and stuff. But the last part of the Antrim coast is Old Bushmills Distillery. It's like the oldest distillery in the world, I guess. It was they got their license from King James of the Bible, King James version, I guess, of the Bible.
Get you a man who can do both.
Yeah. But the Old Bushmills Distillery is cool if you're really into Irish whiskey. And if you do a tour to the Antrim coast, it'll probably be roped in the package.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some cool stuff on the Antrim coast.
No, distilleries are big in the UK, Scotland. I have clients who go to Scotland just to tour distilleries.
Yeah,
this is cool to see that even here in Northern Ireland, there are distilleries as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the capital city, Belfast. Belfast is really cool. I think you can take a train or a bus from Belfast to Derry, and it's like 45 minutes. 45 minutes by train, and then like maybe an hour by bus. So they're really close, and there's a lot to do in Belfast. It's also a really walkable city. Again, a lot of history going on with the Troubles and stuff. So you can see that a lot of murals and stuff dedicated to that era. But one of the most popular things to do in Belfast is the Titanic Museum. We talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
And
hey, there are people who are diehard Titanic fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, you mean of the movie? I'm really hoping.
Sorry.
Like, wow.
No, like memorabilia goes for high prices on eBay.
Oh, okay.
People study like all the names of the actual people who were on the Titanic.
Sure.
And
that sounds a lot better when you say it, when you describe it. Yeah.
Well,
huge fan of the Titanic.
I went to a Titanic.
Sinking?
I went to a Titanic museum. I think it was in DC. And at the beginning, you get a card and it's a passenger's name, and you get to be that passenger. And at the end of the tour, you find out if you lived or not.
Wow.
And as I'm verbally processing this now, that's a pretty creepy concept for a Titanic museum. But that happened, and my character lived.
Yeah.
I just think of that episode
I was
from
like
Rick and Morty.
Is
that prophetic?
Oh, do tell.
There's this episode in Rick and Morty where what is like the dad does like the Titanic museum, and it's like a whole bit. Yeah, because like I wouldn't think of like why would you do a Titanic museum, but in Belfast that's where the Titanic was constructed.
My uncle's rocket scientist. He loved it.
Really?
He's an engineer. Yeah, dude, you're an engineer. You might love it.
I mean, I went. And it was cool.
I thought you didn't like it.
No,
you
I
did.
mean, we did it. It's like it's 21 euros per person. It's not it's not expensive.
A couple hours.
Yeah, I think it was like a 2.5 hour little thing.
We also aren't diehard Titanic fans. We just, good movie.
You're diehard fans. Yeah.
It's a big part of
fans,
Belfast's culture. That's for sure.
All right.
So
that's cool.
It's cool. There's a lot of museums in the area. I mean, if you want to go to a museum but you don't want to pay money for the museum, you can go to Ulster Museum. That's completely free, and they also have a really cool botanical garden there.
What's in the Ulster Museum?
They have like an exhibit dedicated to the Troubles, and
cool.
they have
history. Yeah, kind of learn about the history of this city.
Yeah, so they have some artifacts from that. They have some stuff from like Egyptian archaeology. Yeah, I mean,
just general fun museum things.
Yeah, just general fun museum
Art.
things. Yeah, it's
History.
yeah, the big university in Northern Ireland is the University of Ulster, and it's I guess curated by that university. I think that's the correct word. Yeah, so cool museums in Belfast. A lot of walkable things to do in Belfast.
I want to throw out the hotel I generally use for clients in Belfast is called the Europa Hotel.
Yeah.
It's a nice 4-star hotel. It's in walking distance to the train station, the Titanic Museum.
It's
I didn't
right
check the
outside.
museum.
Yeah, right
And
outside the
it's
bus stop
really,
or train station.
Yeah, really reasonably priced, so it just works out well.
It was also bombed during the Troubles. Yeah, it was bombed. It was one of the big things.
That's big.
Really cool.
Bill Clinton stayed there, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. There's also a really popular mall that's kind of like in the center of the city. And in the mall, there's like a sky tower, I want to say.
Okay.
And it gives you a nice panoramic view of the city, which is really cool. And that's completely free. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to like the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin, when the big tower in Guinness.
The other hotel recommendation you could be safe with in Ireland is going to be the Jury's Inn. So there's a Jury's Inn Belfast. There's a couple Jury's Inn in Dublin. There's a Jury's Inn in Galway. I want to say there's some more Jury's Inn in Southern Ireland as well. It's just going to be your nice 3 to 4 star, moderately priced hotel that you can count on. It's going to have a nice restaurant inside and it's just going to be nice.
I mean, for us, like we didn't stay in any hotels. We just stayed in an Airbnb in Derry and then just kind of went to all of these locations, whether it be by a train or by bus. Everything's really easy to get to.
That's the beauty of public transportation here. I'm terrified to rent a car and drive on the left-hand side of the road.
Sure.
And I'm nervous about parking tickets and driving in an unauthorized zone. I have stories of clients who got mailed a parking ticket in the mail 2 months after their vacation because they drove in an unauthorized zone and they got caught by a security camera. And I don't know. I just hear too many horror stories about it. When do I pay for parking? When don't I pay? Oh, shoot, I only have a credit card. I don't have change. So I'm a big fan of like, just don't get if you want to get a rental car and you feel competent, go for it. But you know from other podcasts, I'm not a driver in foreign countries except for Iceland. So check out that episode because I talk about conquering my fears in driving in a foreign country. But here, buses, trains, you're good.
Yeah.
It's very walkable though, Belfast and Derry.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they're really cool cities. And I mean, if you are interested in going to Dublin and you're in Northern Ireland, Dublin is 2.5 hours by bus from Derry and about like 2 hours from Belfast itself. And the price per person is like $18. So you can spend a day in Dublin if you want. And I recommend it. It's a cool little town or cool city. Lots of things to do there as well. We have an episode coming up dedicated to Ireland itself. So we'll talk about Dublin a little bit more in that episode.
Well, and I want to take a minute to give the reverse of what Will just said. For those of you who are going to mainland Ireland, which we are going to talk about in a later episode, you can also take the train from Dublin to Belfast, 2 hours. And I want to say you were talking earlier, 3 nights, 3 or 4 days, you could do Northern Ireland.
Yeah, you can absolutely do Northern Ireland in 3 days if you really want to. I would do Belfast, Derry, and a day to the coast. But I really recommend spending at least 5 to 7 days there because there is so much to do. I recommend checking out Rathlin Island and all these other things that we've talked about.
And you're going to suggest April or May or summer months?
Yeah,
probably
absolutely.
September, October, probably latest in the season?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Daylight's an issue too, so you want to go in the summer because you get more light.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I would say summer would be ideal as someone who doesn't enjoy the wet, the moist.
Yeah. There's one thing that the United Kingdom has a bad rap for, and that's their culinary scene, and Northern Ireland is a part of that. But I'm here to say that it gets a bad rap, and it's not worthy of that bad rap. There's good food in Northern Ireland, and there's three big items that Northern Ireland is really known for. One of them is beef
potatoes.
stew. Potatoes.
I was going to say potatoes, and potatoes.
More potatoes. Yeah, potatoes is definitely there. There's beef stew is really popular. There's this dish called the pasty or the pasty dish, and it's basically like
Nice.
You say ice?
I just said nice.
Oh.
It is nice. It's just like a a beef dish wrapped up in like a pastry. It's minced meat inside of like a medium like sized pastry. It's
like
pretty interesting.
Yorkshire pudding.
Kind of like a Yorkshire pudding. Yeah. So they have like a beef inside like a Yorkshire pudding. Yeah. If you're not familiar with British slang, Yorkshire pudding is a pastry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned Irish food, I was going to say, a checked suitcase is a great place to pack cumin, paprika, salt and pepper, maybe some ginger and nutmeg,
You don't need it.
some
I'm telling
turmeric. Ireland was the only place where I didn't feel bad eating Chinese food.
I was gonna say salt. Put some salt in there.
My mom comes from an Irish family, and I remember the big, they always put butter on their baked potatoes, and then they finally made a step when she got to her teens of adding some salt and pepper, and that was a big deal to their
Wow.
baked potatoes. So.
Wow.
Spicy.
If you get tired of Irish food, you can always check out Nando's. Nando's is like, I don't know, the McDonald's of United Kingdom.
Oh no, don't. They don't. No.
Okay, the Chick-fil-A of the United Kingdom.
It's good. It's
Chipotle?
just it's its own thing. Yeah.
They really focus on
Good.
chicken sandwiches.
Just chicken.
Yeah, no, yeah, I guess
And
just
they got
chicken
their
as a whole.
peri peri sauce.
It's good. It's good. We
Okay.
definitely ate there once or twice.
It has flavor is the key word.
Oh, we have listeners who love beef stew.
Dude, I love their
Like
beef stew
my
there.
dad,
It's
who's
so
going
good.
to listen. He cracks open beef stew once a week, at least, in a frying pan.
Shout out to Lance.
Hey, 40 years of a travel agent. He's managed to travel the whole world and eat hot dogs and hamburgers.
Should have started off
Beef
this
stew.
podcast without
Right.
beef stew
right.
fans are gonna really love this podcast.
When my dad came to visit my brother and I in China, we'll have a China episode later. I remember we took him to KFC and he was still grossed out by it.
Okay, well,
You might be as well.
yeah.
I mean, if you're feeling adventurous, you could try out black pudding, which is a really Irish dish.
I am
Just
not
don't
feeling-
Google it. Don't look at what's actually in it. Just eat it.
Yeah,
quick.
it's
do you
better
mean?
to go blind, but
No, it's blood. Everyone, it's blood.
it is. It is.
Eating congealed blood.
It's
Let 'em
made from
know.
pork blood, pork fat. There might be some beef suet in there, which is basically fat, and then some sort of like oatmeal or like a grain or something. There was a nice Irish gentleman that owned a restaurant that was volunteering to feed us some blood sausage for free so that
What
we
a-
could get a nice cultural
What a
experience.
nice guy.
It was really nice. It was really cool, but
And I
we
still
politely
didn't have
declined.
it. Yeah.
Well, that was like we didn't try the fermented shark in Iceland.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of like a similar kind of idea. But I think that's all we have for tips. We can probably roll into standby items.
Perfect.
It's safety and other info with standby items. Here we go.
This will probably be like the shortest standby items that we've ever had.
Nothing
Because I
wrong
don't
with
really
that.
have that much.
Yeah.
I think like the only thing that I could really say is that if you're flying into Northern Ireland, just know that there's two airports. One is Belfast International, the other is George Best Airport. So I mean, if you're planning a trip to Northern Ireland, you're gonna want Belfast International to be your destination.
Sure, and there's nothing wrong with doing the multi-city trip, flying in and out of Dublin or Shannon, which are also international airports, and flying the opposite in or out of Belfast.
Yeah.
Belfast code BFS, that's Bravo Foxtrot Sierra. Trains, let's talk about you. We did talk about trains. Trains in Ireland are not beautiful Japanese up to date, high speed,
Yeah, they're not bullet
comfortable
trains.
luxury trains.
It is a mode of transportation, so
They
you don't
were
have to drive.
made in the
That is what it
60s and 70s and really haven't been updated. Maybe some have.
Yeah.
I will say that the
I
train.
thought they were comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like you'd have like a little, at least for our longer train trips,
hmm
Yeah.
you'd have a little table, it's like a seat of four, and then
I like
sitting
that.
across two of you, sitting across from
Did-
two, and you had a little table.
Did you need to book tickets in advance or did you book them day of? Did you
Day
just
of.
walk there?
We just walked in.
No problem.
and, yeah, I got some tickets.
I think for Ireland, I would go on a limb and say you probably don't need to book tickets in advance, except maybe like Dublin to Belfast. I
Yeah.
don't know how crowded that one gets. I have to assume there's a lot of business travelers on it.
Yeah, and it's an international train
Right.
trip. So
And at this point, we don't know what that looks like as far as, are they checking your passport when you get on the train, or are they stopping the train across the border to check passports? I've been on trains throughout the EU where literally the train stops on the borderline. Passport officials come on board and check everyone's passports.
yeah, we went to Northern Ireland before Brexit,
Yeah.
so it was still a part of the EU when
Okay.
we were there. So it's probably changed, but when we went, we didn't have to worry about needing to check passports when we crossed the border from the Republic of Ireland to Northern Ireland.
Yeah. Let's talk about currency.
Yeah, that's a good point. Northern Ireland uses the same currency that's used in the United Kingdom. So pound sterling.
Yeah.
You're not going to need euro unless you go into the Republic of Ireland. You
Right.
go to Dublin, that's when you will need euro.
Yeah.
But if you're going to Northern Ireland and just going into to Northern Ireland, you're going to need pound sterling.
A lot of places take credit card, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
nice.
Yeah, no problem there.
Probably not in taxis, though.
Yeah.
Don't know about Uber. Is Uber prevalent? I'm sure it is. I might do a quick search here.
Actually, when we went, Uber was not really a big thing at the time.
We did
Yeah.
taxis. They would have.
Yeah.
Payphones would have.
F cash. There's
Just a button you press.
ATMs. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, just a button that you press and it just connects you to the taxi service.
Mm-hmm.
And they were pretty responsive.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was I going to say? I wanted to ask about electricity.
Okay.
It's-
Yeah, you need a plug. You need a.
Yeah, but is it? This is where it gets tough.
It's the United
because
Kingdom converter.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
But then when you get to mainland Europe, what is it?
it's the European.
Is it?
I think so.
Or is it still the same one? I know mainland, or I keep saying mainland Ireland. I'm sorry. What I mean to say is the Republic of Ireland, the place that has Dublin and all that kind of stuff.
That's a good point.
They use the euro down there in Dublin.
Right.
Yet they drive on the left-hand side of the road, which is the UK, not
Yeah.
the EU. So it's like when you go to Ireland, no matter whether you're in the Republic or Northern, you're going to drive on the left-hand side of the road.
Yeah.
Right.
There's two different currencies,
Sure.
but there's the same current when it comes to electricity.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive.
Did you need a UK converter when you were in India?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's probably the same with Ireland because Ireland was at one point a English territory.
So for electricity wise, Northern Ireland as well as the Republic of Ireland both use the 230 volt UK plug. So just as a quick recap here, no matter which part of Ireland you're going to, whether it's the Republic or Northern, you're going to be driving on the left-hand side of the road. And no matter which country you visit, Northern or Republic, you're going to be using the UK travel adapter, though we recommend the international travel adapter, which covers like 150 countries. We'll have a link to that in our travel guide.
Yeah, we can link that.
And then lastly, when it comes to currency, the two countries use a different currency. Northern uses the British pound sterling. Republic of Ireland uses the euro.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think we have anything else to talk about. But how about you, Kristen?
No, I've provided you with all the wisdom I have.
Thanks for being on our show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm really counting on.
Did you have fun on your first Travel
I
Agents
did.
podcast?
This was great. I'm really counting on the whole being married to the editor
Yeah.
to really benefit me. So you edit out that, you know what I'm talking about, that part. You won't,
Oh, don't
listeners
worry.
won't know what you're talking about because you've already edited it out. But
You did great. And first of many, for sure.
great. So that means I'm allowed to go on these trips so that way I can be on the podcast. I love it.
We'll bring you along.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You know, one thing that makes this podcast unique from other travel podcasts is that we're actually travel agents and we work for a travel agency. My great grandfather started a travel agency over 100 years ago, and we have the pleasure of working there now as travel agents. The travel agency is called Kima Travel. You can find us online at www.kima.travel. Kima spelled Chima. And the best part is that when you support Kima Travel by letting us book your trips, you're also supporting this podcast. So you get our great service as travel agents and you're supporting your favorite travel podcast.
Absolutely. And if you're not interested in booking a trip right now, but you want to support the show, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com. And you can find our particular page in the description below. We are at buymeacoffee.com/thetravelagents.
We're the travel agents, that's the end of our show. Make sure to comment and subscribe before